What happens if you have another episode like we saw during the debate?
What happens if another?
Yeah, what happens if you have another performance on that level?
Episode.
I don't plan on having another performance on that level.
I think you just slipped into a coma in the middle of trying to answer that question. Maybe you should get back in your iron lung in the basement of the White House where you belong. Joe Biden and Lester Holt. Lester Holt, it would be, remember when they were yelling, the lunatic cop car burning media? They were yelling that during the debate they should be fact-checking just Trump in real time and not Biden because they're filth. Well, Lester Holt did not fact-check, it would be generous to say, did not fact-check Joe Biden at all in his big interview yesterday, which aired in prime time last night on the NBC network. And the New York Post has a story today about the scene of the crime on Saturday. Local counter sniper team was inside building where Trump shooter climbed on the roof and opened fire. Sources. They got that colon and then one word thing again. They love their colons. I think maybe the local counter sniper team should have been outside of the building rather than inside of the building. I did hear one report yesterday that said it's because it was really hot. It was hot out. So they went inside the building, and then the sniper crawled up on the roof and shot President Trump in the ear and murdered a man and wounded 2 more people in a mass shooting at a Trump political rally. And the news media and Senator Chris Murphy could care less. They want more demonization, more vilification, our media. Now, let me, with that, let's get to another story. Also, the New York Post has it, and the Washington Post doesn't because it's not a legitimate news organization, and the New York Times doesn't. The headline is referring to the Biden interview with Lester Holt of NBC Fake News yesterday. Biden defends bullseye remark about Trump during NBC interview with Lester Holt, they love their colons. I didn't say crosshairs. Well, neither did Lester Holt, interestingly enough. I was watching the interview with my best girl. I was making notes. I was mocking. I might have spoken out loud more than once about the false claims that Biden made about good people on both sides, and I'm going to be a dictator on day one. And Lester Holt doesn't fact-check anything in real time. He doesn't correct anything because as bad as he's not, he's still just a Democrat frontman, and that's all there is to it. The dateline is Milwaukee. Nobody knows why. President Biden appeared to defend, saying the Democrats should put Donald Trump in a bullseye less than a week before the former president was shot, saying, quote, I didn't say crosshairs. And I was watching this last night, and I was yelling at the TV, not too loud. Lester Holt didn't say crosshairs either. Lester Holt said bullseye, and then Joe Biden's twisted brain, which the wires got crossed and the crosshairs, and the dimwit said, well, I never said crosshairs. And Lester Holt says, well, why did you say bullseye? And he says, I didn't say crosshairs. It's the man's brain is completely broken. He's a liar. He's a fraud. He's a charlatan. And he's very severely brain damaged, which ought to be considered a problem. Lester Holt with his pal Joe Biden, it aired last night. They, I guess, taped the interview yesterday, and they claimed they aired the whole thing. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but I think they posted the rest of it online or something like that. Lester Holt, NBC Fake News. Joe Biden, fake White House.
You called your opponent an existential threat on a call a week ago. You said it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. There's some dispute about the context, but I think you appreciate that.
I didn't say crosshairs. I was talking about focus on.
What?
Look, the truth of the matter was, what I guess I was talking about at the time was there was very little focus on Trump's agenda.
Yeah, the term is bullseye.
Yeah, the term was bullseye. I just said that you said on a conference call that Trump is an existential threat and we need to put him in a bullseye. And Joe Biden responds because his brain, she's a broke. His brain had him say, I didn't say crosshairs. And Lester Holt is like, neither did I. I don't know what you're talking about. You just changed the word, and now you're talking about something else because you're severely brain damaged. You're a maroon. You should be in a home somewhere. You should leave the country alone. And President Trump made NATO stronger, not you. Amazing stuff. Existential threat put him in a bullseye. And Lester Holt is a little confused by this. And he says, well, wait a minute. I didn't say anything about crosshairs. I said, and he corrected him again at the end of that soundbite. I said bullseye, not crosshairs. It continued.
It was a mistake to use the word. I didn't say crosshairs. I meant bullseye. I meant focus on him.
What?
Focus on what he's doing. Focus on his policies. Focus on
what?
The number of lies he told in the debate. Focus. I mean, there's a whole range of things that, look, I'm not the guy that said I want to be a dictator on day one.
What? And I played that soundbite yesterday of President Trump on with Sean Hannity. After the Democrat saying he's going to be a dictator, Sean Hannity asked him, are you going to be a dictator? And he said mockingly, tongue-in-cheek, yeah, I'm going to be a dictator on day one. And everybody laughed in the room. And he said it's going to be close the border and drill, baby, drill. And that's and Sean Hannity said, well, that's not really being a dictator, is it? But Joe Biden continues to lie, and Lester Holt continues to sit there with his head wedged deep inside of his own dark and remote location and not correcting any of this because they don't actually follow the news. They don't know what's in the news. And even CNN did a fact check on Biden after the debate, and they had pages of Joe Biden's falsehoods that he uttered in the debate. And nobody at NBC News, Lester Holt, none of them are going to say, well, you accused President Trump of lying, and here's a fact check of you at the debate. That's not going to happen because when you're a Democrat, he's there to perform an act of journalistic gratification upon you, and you get, the full treatment, the whole job. It's pretty amazing stuff. So I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Crosshairs. I just said, you said Trump is an existential threat and we need to put him in a bullseye. And then hours later, he was shot by an assassin, a would-be assassin who murdered one and wounded President Trump plus two others. And Joe Biden is just off over there. And Lester Holt doesn't nail him on it, doesn't follow up on it. Why would he? Because, Man, oh man. Lester Holt with his pal, Joe Biden yesterday.
Have you taken a step back and done a little soul searching on things that you may have said that could incite people who are not balanced?
Well, I don't think, look, how do you talk about the threat to democracy, which is real?
It's real.
When a president says things like he says, do you just not say anything because it may incite somebody?
Like what? I'm going to be a dictator on day one, and there are good people on both sides. I'm not talking about the Nazis and the fascists deserve to be condemned entirely. He is a horrible person, a fatuous liar, a fraud, a charlatan. And to say that Lester Holt did, and I got to say, his questions on paper, he walked in with these questions, and they sounded just fine as like real journalistic questions. But when Joe Biden gives you these BS answers, you're supposed to have the wherewithal and the facts at the ready so that you can rebut the false claims that he makes. But Lester Holt was not doing that at all. Man, oh man, you're a Democrat party. Joe Biden with his pal Lester Holt.
He's going to surround himself with people who agree completely with him. Have a voting record. I support him. Even though if you go back and listen to the things J.D. Vance said about Trump.
Well, he said some things about you, yeah.
Oh, no, well, he said something about me, but see what he said about Trump. What's with you guys? Come on, man.
Come on, man. Now, he's insisting that in his interview with Lester Holt, that Lester Holt spend his time attacking Trump and attacking J.D. Vance and dredging up negative things that J.D. Vance said in 2016 about Donald Trump. He thinks that should be the focus of Lester Holt's interview. And he says, come on, man. His brain is just mush. It's no good. He's got to go. He shouldn't be the president of the United States. He should resign today because he is not up to the task. He's an idiot. He's a moron. He's brain damaged. And everything he says is wrong, one degree or another. And Lester Holt was not there to fact check him at all.
Mr. Trump has said he's giving you a chance to redeem yourself, basically the idea of engaging in another debate.
We're going to have another debate.
Yeah, you're going to have one in September that's on the books.
No,
Would you
not.
be open to doing one in the next few weeks?
I'm going to debate him when we agreed to debate, and I'm going to debate him in September.
Oh, yeah. I'll bet $1 that doesn't happen one way or the other. That's not going to happen. And then some weird stuff, Joe Biden about riding a horse. It's, what kind of lion, dog face, pony soldier?
Is there a sense of wanting to get back on the horse?
I'm on the horse. Where have you been? I've done 22 major events. Met thousands of people.
No, you haven't.
Overwhelming crowds.
No, there
A
aren't.
lot happening.
No, there isn't.
I'm on the horse. What I'm doing is going out and demonstrating to the American people that I have command of all my faculties, that I don't need notes, I don't need teleprompter. I can go out and answer any questions at all. And I stood there when NATO was in town. I stood there for an hour and answered questions.
I got to tell you, yeah. Variety magazine, CNN hosted the presidential debate, and Variety magazine headline, CNN defends decision to not fact-check debate live. It's up to the candidates to challenge one another. Apparently, NBC and Lester Holt would defend their not fact-checking Joe Biden live in the middle of us. In fact, it was pre-taped. They could have fact-checked him later. Lester Holt and Joe Biden. Now, he's still engaged in the high-tech lynching of Clarence Thomas all these decades later, which the racist Joe Biden, who didn't want his kids going to school in a racial jungle, racially integrating schools in Delaware, and he's still just on a jihad like a mental case stalker against Clarence Thomas, Justice Clarence Thomas.
I want to ask you about some other developing news today, if I can. Judge Cannon dismissed the documents case, as you may have heard, in Mar-a-Lago. Can I first get your reaction to that?
I'm not surprised. It comes from the immunity decision the Supreme Court ruled on, and Clarence Thomas, in his dissent, said that independent prosecutors appointed by the Attorney General aren't legit. That's the basis on which this judge moved to dismiss.
That's because the Constitution demonstrates that Congress must be responsible for the appointment and for the funding. And your little Hitler White House executive branch, these are the terms that we use now, your little executive branch fiat, we're going to pick somebody who doesn't even work for the government, a private citizen, a former government employee, and we're going to make him a special counsel going around the law and the Constitution, and then we're going to fund it ourselves, even though Congress has to fund it. But no. Joe Biden with his pal Lester Holt.
The basis upon which the case was thrown out, I find specious because I don't agree with Clarence Thomas' dissent.
Still attacking Clarence Thomas.
On immunity.
Just attacking Clarence Thomas and his dissent. You didn't read it. You wouldn't understand it if you did. You're a moron. You're destroying our democracy. And now just attack the Supreme Court generally.
I think the Supreme Court made a terrible decision. I think the justice he appointed.
How many gunmen have to show up at how many events and how many
I would
homes?
argue if you survey constitutional scholarship, they seem out of touch with what the founders intended.
That's the opposite of the truth. They're originalists. They are, by their very nature, very much in touch with what the founders intended. You, as a left-wing maroon and a sock puppet, you're the one who's complaining. You lefties, you want to cancel the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. What the hell? The Bill of Rights is just an a la carte menu for you lefties. And you dump all over the Constitution at every possible turn, and then you accuse people that are originalists who actually support, protect, and defend the Constitution of being anti-Constitution. The Supreme Court is exactly what it should be now at long last, and that's why it must be destroyed by the left, which is here from the world to destroy us. You know that we're seeing awful and surprising shifts in the American political landscape, and it's urgent that we all be prepared, that you be prepared. The presidential race tightening up, getting weird. You need to take action to help protect your finances, regardless of who wins in November. For a whole lot of Americans, in uncertain times, action means trying to protect your financial future wisely, smartly. Gold has almost always throughout human history been the best hedge against economic and political uncertainty. And when it comes to gold, I recommend reaching out to my trusted friends at Advantage Gold. Advantage Gold at 844-368-9797. You're going to get a free 2024 gold and silver guide. It's a very convenient kit. You learn everything you need to learn. Plus, mention this ad that you heard it on my humble radio show and see if you qualify for a $1,300 bonus. Make sure you take steps to keep your finances on solid ground for yourself, for your family, with the changing political landscape. Call today, 844-368-9797. Again, write it down, 844-368-9797. Performances may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Yeah, Joe Biden. It's the end of democracy. He's doing it again. And he said he'd be a dictator. That's a misquote. Said there are good people on both sides. They lie, they cheat, they steal, they rob. We call them Democrats. Now, we learned yesterday that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be given Secret Service protection after Donald Trump was shot, and Joe Biden apparently personally approved of it after it was explained to him by dwarves. I had some dwarves there at the White House. I explained to him. And it should be noted that it was 25 years ago today that John F. Kennedy Jr., JFK Jr., crashed his plane near Martha's Vineyard into the Atlantic Ocean and was killed along with his wife and his wife's sister. I remember the day very well. Women all across America cried and sobbed, some still sobbing 25 years later. But that was 25 years ago today that JFK Jr. crashed his plane because his sister-in-law was late and he was not instrument flight rules qualified. So he crashed his plane 25 years ago today. I have a series of stories about that. I can't tell all of my JFK Jr. stories here because there's way too much going on, but I was assigned to the Pentagon when the movie Air Force One came out. Harrison Ford, 1997. My best girl and I were invited by the Air Force Chief of Staff or somebody to come to a screening in a theater in Washington before the movie was widely released. And we saw it not far from this radio station. The theater is not there anymore. It's a gym now, I think. And we went, and my best girl and I, we went and saw this movie, Air Force One, with a bunch of the Air Force Secretary, the Air Force Chief of Staff, a bunch of, Air Force One pilots and things. And in the audience was John F. Kennedy Jr. John F. Kennedy Jr. was invited to the Air Force One screening with his wife, maybe then girlfriend. And they were in the audience sitting to our left. We were kind of in the center and they were to the left. And every time the screen got bright, every female head in the theater would snap and turn in John F. Kennedy Jr.'s direction. And then when the screen went dark again, their heads would go back toward the screen. This included my best girl, who was turning her head to the left every time the screen got bright to look over at John F. Kennedy Jr. And then when the screen got dark, back at the theater. And it was kind of funny. We saw the movie. We came out of the theater and women were flocking around his limousine. There was a Cadillac, formal length limousine, very tasteful. And they rushed over to get into the thing. And then we got in our car and we were driving home. And driving home, about halfway home, my best girl rubbed her neck with her left hand and said, "My neck hurts." And I just laughed. It was a funny moment. But I did laugh out loud. It was funny. She said, "Why is that funny?" And then I explained. And she recognized why it was funny. Also, the day 25 years ago today, I was assigned to the Pentagon as well. And I was called into the Pentagon because there was a U.S. Navy search for his airplane going on near Martha's Vineyard. And during the press conference, there was an admiral, Coast Guard admiral, I believe, being piped in, audio only. He was on the speakers in the White House briefing room. And I had received word of something going on in the search in Martha's Vineyard. And I asked this question of the admiral who was being piped into the Pentagon briefing room, audio only. I said, "Is it true that you've recovered luggage from the beach in Martha's Vineyard with his name tags and his wife's name tags on the luggage?" And he said, "Yes, that is true." And that was the end of the mystery. That was, there are more stories too, Martha's Vineyard and John, but now I got to get back to what I'm doing here today. And there are other funny stories too, but I can't tell them all now. All right, let's go back to Joe Biden and Lester Holt because, the news is still being leaked out that Barack Obama is behind the curtain in the effort to get Joe Biden out of the White House, get him to drop out of the race. And Lester Holt kind of very politely didn't ask him directly about it, but brushed up against the real question.
President Obama put out a statement after the debate, but should he and Michelle Obama be doing more to express their confidence in you?
No, they're helping me. They've helped me from the beginning. This is my job to get this done.
Have you talked to him recently about this?
I haven't talked to him in a couple weeks.
What's a couple of weeks?
Have you talked to him since this issue came to light, since the debate?
I don't think I may have. I don't think so.
He doesn't know. He doesn't remember if he's spoken to Barack Obama. He doesn't know in weeks. How many weeks? 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 22 weeks. How many weeks? He doesn't know. He can't quite remember. Just remarkable stuff. And Joe Biden, not the brightest guy ever to hold the job.
Who do you listen to on deeply personal issues, like the decisions whether to stay in the race or not?
Me. Look, I've been doing this a long time.
Me?
The idea that I'm the old guy. I am. I'm old.
What?
But I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two,
all evidence
my
to the
mental
contrary.
acuity's been pretty good.
My mental acuity's been pretty good. And then I made note of this because and I sent Michael Piercy a text about it. I made this recommendation when they first announced, whenever it was, a couple of weeks ago, that NBC was going to be doing an interview with Joe Biden on the day of the first night of the Republican National Convention and air it in prime time as counter-programming to disrupt the NBC News and Lester Holt engaging in an Operation Chaos and a disruption of the opening night of the Republican National Convention by interviewing Joe Biden, pre-recording it and airing it in prime time. And I recommended at the time, I say, the Trump team should really come forward to NBC News very publicly and saying, all right, you interviewed Joe Biden, you're airing at the first night of the Republican Convention. Now you need to interview President Trump the day of the first night of the Democratic Convention in Chicago and air that in prime time. And I was surprised that last night I was watching this interview with my best girl. I was surprised at the end of the interview when Lester Holt said this.
That was our unedited conversation with President Biden. We should note we extended the same interview offer to Mr. Trump to sit down with us on the first night of the Democratic National Convention when it happens next month.
So apparently word got to somebody, and I'm very happy. I don't know if the Trump people requested this. They should have. They should have demanded it. They should have told him, that's how this is going to go. But nevertheless, and notwithstanding, good for them. Now, Morning Joke. I talked about Morning Joke yesterday. We go to Morning Joke next. Morning Joke was pulled off the air yesterday because President Trump was shot on Saturday, and you know how the Democrats hate President Trump, and that show is a hate frenzy and has been for a long, long time. And this morning they showed up and, hey, you guys were off yesterday. You weren't on, and your faithful mental cases, dozens of them across the country, actually missed you. Some of them probably overdosed on fentanyl, something like that, maybe severed their own genitalia, put it in a mayonnaise jar. Funkin' Wagnall's front porch since noon today. Mo Yarborough showed up today, though, although I think they do the show from their home in Florida and pretend that they're in Washington when they're not.
We were told in no uncertain terms on Sunday evening that there was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels yesterday. The Today Show would be Lester Holt, other people that you worked with on Sunday, and that was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels, that we were going to stay as a network in breaking news mode throughout all day yesterday. That did not happen.
That did not happen. Uh-oh. Wait, you're taking shots at your lords and masters at MSDNC, at NBC Fake News, for pulling you off the air, and now you're back and you're bitter about something else. They're always bitter about something. Every day they're very bitter.
We don't know why that didn't happen, or team was not given a good answer as to why that didn't happen, but it didn't happen. We were also told it was going to happen throughout the day. And I guess after there was such a strong blowback about yesterday morning, I guess they changed their plans. And so those plans changed as well.
Yeah, that's the show where Michael Beschloss said that Republicans will arrest your children and kill your children. Their presidential historian. Sure. Yeah. Morning Joke. Yeah, you were really, really missed on Monday by nobody.
We've talked about it off the air. We'll talk about it on the air because we talk about everything on the air. We were very surprised. We were very disappointed. And if we had known that there wasn't going to be the one news feed from NBC News across all NBC News channels,
the one news feed,
Willie, we obviously would have been in yesterday morning.
Yeah, Willie. Willie. And then Willie he is really upset, too, because he's a bootlick.
We want to be here for our audience, and we know you trust us. And
few though they may be.
We have ultimate respect for you guys. So we are here today. I wish we'd been here yesterday.
We all wish we would have been here yesterday. We still would like to figure out exactly why there wasn't that one news feed.
Yeah, why there wasn't that one. Nobody cares about your one news feed, okay? You know, their egos are completely. Remember when Joe Scarborough said that Mika had a mind meld with people in North Korea, which was entirely true. They're not well, these people. Here's Mika, not the brightest flotation device in the world.
And I think the reason why is this show began and continues 17 years later on being the place where you can go to have the hard conversations in a civil way. And so it seemed like now more than ever is a time that we would like to be on. And I think our viewers agree with that. So we continue.
Now, they've got like 6 friends that watch the show, and they text them all day long, and they think that they're popular. You know, they're all about lowering the temperature. See, NBC News knew that these rapscallions, these mentally ill people, that they would just stoke the flames. But they're all doing it. There was no pause by the Democrats, maybe 20 minutes. And then they're back to everybody's Hitler. You may remember Joe Scarborough on this matter.
Outside of Hitler, I can't think of too many other leaders throughout history who have actually turned their mobs or turned their troops against their own government.
Yeah, turn their mobs, their troops against their own government. I recall the 3-day siege of the White House, forcing the evacuation of the president in 2020 by lefties who set fire to the church of the presidents and injured 160 to 180 police. The so-called Lincoln Project, they've got a Twitter account, and they're back at it. They've got a posting posting now of video of Adolf Hitler driving in his convertible limousine and being waved at by crowds as he drives by. And the Lincoln Project writes, Hitler's power wasn't taken, it was given. Yeah, okay. And once he had control, he enacted his horrifying dictatorial agenda. The same dynamic is at play with Trump. And they've got black and white video here of Nazis goose-stepping and things like that. My father actually took some time out of his youth to kill Nazis in Europe. And, you know, in my family, that's considered to be a very good idea. So here it is. This is the dialed down rhetoric. There is no dialing down of the rhetoric. They will burn more churches. They will burn more police cars. They will attack more courthouses and more police stations. They will continue to kill. Democrats shot 109 people in Chicago last weekend and killed 19 of them because that's what Democrats do. Democrats carjacked, 690 people in Washington, D.C. last year. Democrats waved illegal aliens into the country to murder Laken Riley and to murder Ruby Garcia and to murder Rachel Morin and to rape. And the Democrats are all good with that. And if you mention it, they call you a racist. I think normal people are tired of being called names by people that are burning our country to the ground and destroying our democracy in order to save it. Joe and Mika this morning.
And let me just say, next time we're told there's going to be a news feed replacing us, we will be in our chairs.
We'll be sitting here.
Yeah, and the news feed will be us, or they can get somebody else to host the show.
Oh, no, they have to get to somebody else to host the show. The self-importance of these people is mind-boggling. Just amazing stuff. Alejandro Mayorkas, he was on, he had a little bit of a press conference yesterday, and they announced that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would be getting Secret Service after all because Joe Biden doesn't want him shot too.
In light of this weekend's events, the president has directed me to work with the Secret Service to provide protection to Robert Kennedy Jr.
Doink. And it's who would have somebody dropped their champagne bottle in the bucket there or something. The president has directed him. Well, we had to wait until Trump was shot by a sniper before RFK gets protection on this 25th anniversary of John F. Kennedy Jr. going into the Atlantic Ocean. The director of the Secret Service is a DEI woman named Kim Cheadle. She sat down to do an interview with ABC News' Pierre Thomas yesterday. Kim Cheadle was apparently, I am told, that she was Jill Biden's pick to become director of the CIA for whatever, of the Secret Service for whatever reason. Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle on ABC.
The Secret Service is responsible for the protection of the former president.
So the buck stops with you?
The buck stops with me. I am the director of the Secret Service. It was unacceptable, and it's something that shouldn't happen again. We're going to continue to be transparent and communicate with people.
You plan to stay on? Absolutely.
I do plan to stay on.
My plan is for you to not stay on. That's, I think from this point on, your plan may not be the most important plan, to tell you the truth. There are a lot of other plans that have to be taken into account, Kimba. Love it. Elon Musk has said he is committing $45 million a month to a new pro-Trump super PAC that will focus on early voting and mail-out ballots and doing what the Democrats do to poach elections. Amazing stuff. And other backers of America PAC, the Palantir Technologies co-founder, Joe Lonsdale, and the Winklevoss twins, from Facebook, from the Facebook movie. I think Armie Hammer played them both in the movie. So you got rich people lining up here, but the Democrats are still all about Hitler and shooting people. So we got to keep our eyes peeled for them.
We were saying the same thing about Hitler in the 30s.
The Babylon Bee, which is funny, has the headline, 12 women come forward alleging they were sexually assaulted by whoever Trump's VP pick is. Yesterday headline before the VP pick was announced. That's how the Democrats operate. This is what they do. They're very sinister and devious people. They're very corrupt people, very slimy people. We call them Democrats. So, and the Babylon Bee is pretty funny, much funnier than the Onion. The Onion used to be funny, not so funny anymore. Let us grab a phone call. Before we wrap up for the day, let's go to Jay. Hang on. Hang on. Where am I going here? Let's go to Mark. My apologies. Calling from Oatlands, Virginia. And Mark, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Okay, Chris, thank you for taking my call. You were talking about RFK Jr. putting that airplane in the ocean.
Yes, sir.
The Navy salvaged that, and one of the divers in that Navy detail who dove on that wreck was Hung Kao.
Hung Kao, who is now a candidate for the United States Senate.
Our next senator. Yes.
Next senator from the Commonwealth of Virginia, great American, and someone that I know and like very much. And Hung Kao was one of the Navy divers. Hung Kao, Naval Academy, and Navy diver and EOD, underwater EOD, explosive ordnance disposal, and assigned to SEAL teams for much of his career, retired as a Navy captain. And I did not know. Excuse me?
A full force striper.
A full force striper, that's right. And Navy captain, the equivalent of full colonel in the other services, and a great American and a great guy. And yes, the next senator from the Commonwealth of Virginia. I did not know, and I know Hung Kao. I've hung out with him and had beers with him. And in fact, we're still overdue for a dinner date with our best girls. And I did not know that he was one of the divers there, and now I do. That's great. Another great line in Hung Kao's resume. Wonderful stuff. Yeah. Mark, how do you know that?
Next time you see him. It was in part of his resume
okay.
before the primary.
Oh, very nice. Okay. Very good. Thank you.